Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. Support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys. Head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
All you motherfuckers are gonna pay. You are the ones who are the ball lickers. We're gonna fuck your mothers while you watch and cry like little whiny bitches. We're gonna make them eat our shit, then shit out our shit, and then eat their shit that's made up of our shit that we made them eat. And then all you motherfuckers are next. Love, Jane, Silent Bob.
Hey everyone.
Hi everyone.
Welcome to One Fish, Two Fish. No, it's one Smith, Two Smith,
Old Smith, New Smith. There you go. That's right. That's what it's called.
I think it's really just Old Smith, New Smith is like the actual official title.
Right, sure. Okay. Whatever you say, honestly.
Yeah. Whatever I say.
You could literally tell me this show is called whatever, and I would just be like, yeah, that's right. That's the name of the show, everyone.
Listen, I'm one of your hosts, David Bell.
I'm the second one of those hosts in number, Tom Ryman.
And a big thank you to @NerdNumbers.
Woo! Thank you!
Thank you so much. Nerd Numbers came to us and had an idea, had a dream, and we've been living out their dream. And that dream was to watch Kevin Smith movies. And what we're doing...
Modest dreams. But yeah, dreams nonetheless.
It's still a dream. What we're doing is we're watching them in pairs. We're watching one old Kevin Smith movie and one new Kevin Smith movie. And we're basically just going on the IMDb's, starting with the beginning and the end, and closing in.
The alpha and the omega.
Which means our pairing for the next two podcasts is Mallrats, 1995's Mallrats, followed by Yoga Hosers, whenever that was made. Not going to look that up.
Oh, it's in the 20-teens at some point.
20-teens,
Late 20-teens, later 20-teens.
I've never seen the latter. I have seen the former many, many times.
Good, me too. And you know what? That works out well because that's the one we're talking about today.
That is the one we're talking about today.
Yeah.
I have vomited on a VHS of this.
Oh, good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I had the DVD with the commentaries.
I watched this on the DVD. I still own the DVD, which is fun because it opens with like a Universal DVD ad that's like Meet Joe Black and Out of Sight and shit. Like movies that 25-year-old films.
Delightful.
This DVD, this ancient Mallrats DVD is like, catch these hits.
Yeah. This is a pretty easy podcast setup, by the way. All we're going to do is talk about the movie, and then we're going to talk about how we think it'll pair up with the second movie, and that's it. So we're in it, is my point.
It's begun. It's Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, no intros, no stupid segues.
No.
We're talking about Mallrats.
Nope, no Morning Zoo soundboard. It's just we're right in there. We're in the shit.
The
shit being 1995's Mallrats.
Yep. So this is his follow-up to Clerks.
Yeah.
It feels like a follow-up to Clerks, if that makes sense.
It
feels like the studio got a little bit more control, and it's like everything's a little more cartoony, but polished.
Yeah, I won't say they got more control because there was zero control on Clerks. That was a movie he just made.
Right, so the studio got control.
This is the first example of Kevin Smith working with a studio.
Right. The famous behind the scenes for this is that Jason Mewes had to actually fight for his role. Seth Green was on call during the filming of this.
And I thought Breckin Meyer was who they had.
He auditioned, but Seth Green was apparently like literally just like sitting around waiting in case the studio was like, okay, never mind.
Yeah, in case he didn't work out.
Yeah.
Because Jason Mewes, again, I mean, we talked about it already, but a lot of the View Askew actors, they're all just his friends. I mean, but most of them also happen to be actors. Jason Mewes is just his friend.
Right, and this is the first one where it's like, it's actually cast.
Yeah.
It's not his friends, it's actually actors. So
right, yeah, and obviously some of these people became his friends, like Jason Lee. But
Batfleck.
Yep, the Batfleck.
You could argue this movie gave us Ben Affleck's entire career, right? Because Ben Affleck was in this movie.
You could argue that. You
could, because he became friends. And I don't just mean in the sense of like, oh, this is how he got his start. Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier produced Good Will Hunting, and they met Ben Affleck through this movie. Why did you
say it that way?
Good Will Hunting.
What are you doing?
And so,
what is this? Are you trying? Are you trying to sneak
how am I
shit by
supposed
me?
to say it?
Are you trying
Good
to
Will Hunting?
Good Will Hunting. I don't know why. Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting. There's no wrong way to say Good Will Hunting.
I'm pretty sure that's the wrong way to say Good Will Hunting. You're just trying to slide stuff past me.
Well,
now.
his name Will Hunting.
His name is Will Hunting.
So it's Good Will Hunting.
No, it's not.
Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, it would be Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting.
All right, this is. You know what? We're moving past this.
You gotta let this go. You gotta let this go, Tom.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know.
Yeah. No follow.
But the point is that Kevin Smith is the one who like went to Miramax with
the script
that movie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so Ben Affleck playing like an asshole who likes butt sex really opened up his career. You could argue it's why he's Batman. This even foreshadows Batman with his comic book intro as Buttman.
Sure. Yeah, and an extremely obtuse way. Yeah. It's a real conquest for him.
Yeah. Do you think so? We both have fond memories of this movie, right?
Yeah. This is a movie, that I discovered in middle school and watched all the way through middle and high school. Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it holds up.
It absolutely doesn't. This one probably, of all of the Kevin Smith movies that I've revisited over the years, I think this one ages the worst, which is saying something, because I think it ages even worse than Chasing Amy. Because,
I agree.
Because at least Chasing Amy is borderline offensive in a lot of ways, but at least it's specifically because it's from the point of view of a cis hetero white guy who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about or what the fuck he's doing.
Right.
And it's like explicitly from that point of view. So you can forgive a lot of its like stumbles because that's kind of the point of the movie. It's about this bonehead becoming more aware of other communities outside his own. This movie is just aging bad, and it's just bad all around.
It's just a real product of its time.
Yeah, it's extremely dated.
Yeah, it's two, I would say, bad boyfriends.
They're terrible. I mean, like
getting redemption without actually having to do anything.
Completely unearned redemption.
I would argue specifically TS sucks.
They both do.
They both suck. But TS spends the entire film just being an asshole, like just complaining. Like when he's on that dating show, he's just an asshole to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like yes, they both suck. They absolutely both suck. But like at least Brody is fun to watch.
Yes, that's the movie's saving grace is Jason Lee's performance.
Oh yeah, he's nailing it. I would say the people who can nail Kevin Smith dialogue, it's Jason Lee, and then it's also the two actresses.
I was gonna say, Shannon Doherty and Claire Filani. Like watching it this time, I really noticed, and we talked about this in the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, where Ben Affleck has that ability as well, where he can take this just clunky unwieldy Kevin Smith dialogue and actually make it sound natural. And like where it really struck me in this movie was the two opening sequences where we meet T.S. and Brandy, who is played by Claire Filani. And she handles that scene like it's like, wow, this is like a believable chunk of dialogue. Yeah,
she's
in her
nailing
hands.
it.
And then when Shannon Doherty is delivering her what I do in the bathroom, like this is why I cry.
Yep.
I'm like, this is like a real. This is like real acting. She's like taking this incredibly clunky dialogue and making it seem like a real person is saying it.
Yeah, she's like savoring each line. She's taking her time with it. Surprisingly, I didn't think Ben Affleck, he's still trying to wrap his head around it.
Yeah.
The line I flagged that I also love is I have no respect for people with no shopping agenda.
Right, but he delivers. I love the way he throws it away. I have no respect for people with no shopping agenda. He says it like a Sopranos character. I think this is supposed to be funny. I remember on the DVD commentary, they were laughing at this and not with it, which is when they get dragged up by security and he's screaming, and then Ben Affleck walks up and goes, "Did somebody call your name?" And like, he was like clearly right there when they were screaming. It's just very silly. This movie's rough. Yeah.
But I guess what I wanted to get to is, and this is kind of a question, can we, in like a real fucking butterfly effect way, is this what gave us Marvel? Like the popularity? Like, because this is about, so it's mall culture, right? Mm-hmm. Which is sort of a thing. But the thing that Kevin Smith injects in this, more than he did in Clerks, and it's a big part of him. This is his first thing that like really injects comic book nerd stuff.
Yeah.
In this way where like it seems like everybody in this universe just casually knows about comics. Obviously Brody more than anybody. And then like Stan Lee is seen as a rock star in this, and appears in it. And like this was during that time, right, that Marvel was struggling.
Oh yeah. This would have been filmed in 94 and it came out in 95. So
yeah.
Marvel,
this is of course.
Yeah, Marvel is kind of like, this is back when Marvel was still selling their character license to whoever. Like their biggest hit at this point was the X-Men animated series.
Right. And I think back on Captain Marvel and Stan Lee, his cameo reading the Mallrats script. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Stan Lee is such buddies with Kevin Smith, or was, like for, he was going to be in the Chainsaw and Bob reboot. Mm-hmm. It occurs to me that he might have been aware of that fact, right? That like Kevin Smith sort of signal boosted comic book nerddom in the mid 90s, and it started to grow. We got Blade, obviously.
I don't think.
And then like Spider-Man, but it does feel like he represents to Marvel, or he represented the fandom that kind of saved their asses later. I don't know. This is why it's a question.
I don't think so. I think it's just a confluence of things. Like, I think this is one aspect of just like kind of the timing was right, because this movie bombed catastrophically. Everybody thought the comic book shit was weird and out of nowhere, and it didn't connect with anyone. So I wouldn't put too much. So it's more. And that Marvel didn't become a thing until 15 years after this movie came out. So
right.
I think it's more the X-Men cartoon, because the X-Men cartoon very slowly but definitely eventually gave us X-Men, and then X-Men gave us Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man gave us the MCU.
Then it's probably more just that they appreciate what this movie was doing because it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Like the conversations they're having are conversations that would now be like, these giant Twitter threads about
these are
Superman
all like
fucking Lois Lane,
and these are all like the biggest articles that perform on entertainment websites across the internet, is like talking about all these different comic book characters. So sure, it's ahead of its time in that aspect for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it definitely inspired me even more than Clerks. The conversation that specifically inspires me in this movie is their stupid debate of the definition of a food court, because that's what broadens it to like, you can bullshit about just about anything.
Yeah,
you can have a dumb, passionate conversation about what defines a food court, and that I found delightful. And that's right on, like, that's back to back with the Superman conversation, which I think is like the strongest moment of this movie.
That's the moment that got him the Superman Returns script.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's why they reached out to him, is because of that. And it's like
it's very funny.
And he's even said he told them at the time, and he has said later on like interviews and his podcast and stuff that he didn't come up with that. That's like apparently just a thought that people in comic book fan circles have been having for a while now. So he didn't invent that observation. He just put it in his movie because he thought it was funny. He
signal boosted it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just, I don't know. It's funny how his concept, his views of debate is, I really like it, whereas debate me people on the internet are the worst people ever.
Yeah.
And it really has to do with the stakes. It has to do with, like, if people like debating for the sake of debate, you don't have to debate about politics. You can debate about the definition of a food court. And you can be just as passionate about it.
Yeah.
There's something wholesome about that.
Yeah. I mean, it's also the tactics are different, you know?
Yeah.
Like these are arguments that
for sure.
These debates are exaggerated for comedic effect, and they're not shouting each other down or using bad faith tactics. It's just, it's a gag. It's a joke delivery system.
It sure is. Do we want to explain the plot?
Probably.
So it starts with a monologue about Walter, Brody's cousin, getting a cat stuck in his ass. It has nothing to do with the rest of the film. I only bring it up because it has one of my favorite lines, which is just, my cousin was a weird guy.
Yeah.
And then that goes straight into the credits, and it was like, what a weirdly anticlimactic way to do that.
Yeah, he opens it with a bar. It's a bar joke.
Yeah.
And my cousin Walter got a cat stuck up in his ass. I'm like, Walter, why do you keep shoving cats up your ass? He's like, well, how else am I going to get the gerbil out? My cousin Walter was a weird guy. And then it starts.
And this is Walter Flanagan, who keeps coming up, who is just a real person.
Yeah, sure.
That he's, I mean, Randall talks about his cousin Walter, right? Trying to suck his own dick. It's part of the fan theory that Brody and Randall are cousins. Mm-hmm. Because they seem to have the same cousin.
Yeah.
Named Walter.
Who seems to have died trying to suck his own dick.
Yeah. But not before jerking off on a plane and putting a cat in his ass.
Yeah.
So yeah, it opens with TS getting dumped because of, and this is one of those things that also, this reveals that this takes place, this is like Temple of Doom. It takes place before Clerks, right? It takes place the same
day, I think. Oh, no, wait, it's like right before.
It would be technically before, yeah.
Yeah.
Because Julie Dwyer has just died. Mm-hmm. We learned that she was going to be on this dating game, and she started obsessively doing laps to get in shape because TS said something to her about how the camera adds 10 pounds, and she died in the pool.
Had an embolism right in mid-back.
Embolism, right. And so...
what's interesting...
God, I forgot the character's name.
Brandy,
thank you.
Yeah.
Brandy's going to take her place in the dating game.
Yeah, which is jacking up their plans. He's coming over to the house to pick her up to take her to Florida, where he is planning to propose to her. Now, what's interesting is, and I'm sure you must know this as a Kevin Smith person who had the DVDs and watched all the special features.
The other opening?
This was not the original opening to the film.
No,
so, like, the reference to Clerks was an afterthought. It wasn't something he initially planned.
Yep. This movie is filled with terrible ADR.
Yeah.
Again, by Kevin Smith's own admission, because the original opening was like a governor's ball, which is referenced still in the movie.
Yeah.
That accidentally like devolves. I think TS and Brody accidentally do like an active shooter or something happens.
Yeah.
And they like. I don't know. The part where he says, if it isn't my neighbor is also a reference. So the idea is that they've been on the news, which is why the funniest scene probably is when the guy stops TS in the parking lot and goes, hey, aren't you the guy who broke up with Brandy Svenning? And he punches her. punches him, the original line was, "Didn't I see you on the news?" Because everybody kept asking him that.
Yeah, he was.
It's very funny that a guy would approach him in a parking lot and go, "Aren't you that guy that broke up with that person?"
Well, they try to salvage that gag by having people keep asking him about his breakup with Brandy.
Yeah,
so, like,
but it's still
it's
very
it's
funny.
this heightened reality where that news would spread like wildfire. But yeah, it's the original thing was like TS was dressed up like a colonial soldier, like a Minuteman.
Right.
Something happens with his rifle where it turns into they think he's trying to assassinate the governor, and it becomes a whole thing. It was a really goofy, unwieldy way to open your film.
Yeah, it's like some Naked Gun shit.
Yeah, I understand why it was cut.
Test audiences did not like it. Yeah,
it's baffling. Like I've watched it, I'm like, this is bad.
Yeah,
it's interesting how there's something to be said for that, because there's this with the current fan nerd culture specifically around people like Zack Snyder, where it's like, release the Snyder cut, and now people are like, oh, release the director's cut, and there's like this new push towards director's cuts where people don't even really know what it is they're asking for. But
right.
there's this idea that like so many directors are victimized by studio meddling, and that's certainly true. But like, it's interesting to look at somebody like Kevin Smith, who famously in Clerks, the original ending was Dante gets murdered by a not a shoplifter, a robber. And then this movie's like fucking bonkers, goofy ass original opening where it's like, no. His career was very much helped by studio interference.
Yeah. Well, it's
like,
also
this
the thing
is
that
bad. Cut this.
Yeah, most directors' cuts are things that were like, or most like the theatrical versions. Often it's the director also choosing to cut things.
Exactly.
Like
yeah.
It's just that a director's cut doesn't mean it's necessarily better. It's a back and forth with collaboration and stuff like that. So,
and
like,
very often stuff is cut for time. Stuff is cut because one thing was removed earlier, so now this scene doesn't make sense. So it's not always a case of like, some.
It's one thing when it's like Alien 3, It's another thing when it's these movies. I mean, I watched the fucking the work print of Apocalypse Now. It's one of the worst things I've ever seen. It was almost 5 hours long. Like, and
there's ghosts in it. Like, there's a ghost plantation. It's a fucking stupid ass movie.
It's a mess. It's a fucking mess. Yeah. This is a good example of that. Kevin Smith tends to have the right scenes cut out.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was hard because they were cutting a scene that was the first scene of the movie, so it resonates throughout. There's a line where I think Brody is supposed to say something, and the ADR of him going, "Excellent."
Yep.
Yeah.
they call it out on the commentary too. It's
it's so funny. This movie begins with these two pals getting broken up with.
Yeah.
Brody gets broken up with by Renee, who's basically, Brody just sucks. He wakes up. He's like in college, right? They're like college aged.
They're college age. They are not in school.
College aged, but they're not in school yet.
No.
He wakes up late, plays video games all the time, just watches movies. She has to sneak in and out of the house because he doesn't want her to meet his mom.
He's also he's shitty to her.
Yes, he's also just shitty.
Yeah.
And then you got TS, who is like, he's like just very... He freaks out. Basically what happens is, it's not really his fault, but like in Brandy's mind, he caused this woman to freak out and then have an aneurysm, and now she has to fill in for her father. And like he should understand that. He never gets, like, there's never a point where he apologizes for this. He basically freaks out, and like this one's tougher because he is planning a vacation that they were supposed to leave for that day.
Yeah.
So that is a big change of plans.
Yeah. He's got to eat those tickets. Like, it's not nothing.
But he freaks out for the wrong things. Like, because he's like, your father's so controlling. It's about her father and how he's trying to break them up. And so...
And her father's a bald, raging Michael Rooker.
He sure is. This is prime Michael Rooker.
This is some choice Rooker.
Yeah. So the friends, they decide to cheer each other up. So they go to the mall. And they are a couple of Mallrats, Tom.
Mm-hmm. They sure are, Dave.
they learn that a stage is being erected, and it turns out that the dating show is going to be filmed at the mall.
For reasons that are unclear.
For reasons that are very unclear. It's also unclear what Michael Rooker does. Like, he was holding the governor's ball, and then he has these two guys who are like, you better not screw up. And, like, I just couldn't tell, like, what are you?
What is his job?
Yeah. What are you doing?
Generic rich business.
Yeah, and now he's making a dating game, and I can't tell if he's like he's a producer. I guess he's funding it,
like an events manager. It is very unclear what he's doing. Why it's at the mall? Like, because the show was planned very far in advance. So why are they suddenly building a stage in the mall the day of the show?
Right? Why don't they have a backup lady to take
alternate guest? Yeah,
alternate. Yeah. And so they're making this dating show in the mall. They decide to sabotage it. They ask Jay and Silent Bob to help out with that. And then the movie is just a series of jokes. Ethan Suplee's there. He's at one of those what
magic
are those
eyes.
called?
The magic eyes.
Magic eyes.
Yeah.
I was kept thinking Seeing Eye, and I was like, those are the dogs. A magic eye, and he can't see a sailboat. He is, I think, one of the best parts of this movie. I really enjoy his performance in this.
Yeah.
Him saying to the child, "You dumb bastard."
You dumb bastard.
That's not a schooner, it's a sailboat.
Incredible. Yeah, that whole scene.
Oh, yeah. And they also pay him off, which is nice. So Jay and Silent Bob do a series of antics trying to
sabotage the stage.
Sabotage the stage. They run into Joey Lauren Adams as Gwen several times. They get chased by the mall security guard, LaFours. And what happens is, what else? Ben Affleck's there. Jason Lee learns that Renee is now dating Shannon from the Fashionable Mail store, and it's Ben Affleck looking like a super douche.
Yeah,
wearing like a really great sports jacket over like a nighttime shirt.
Yeah,
like a gray button.
He's in extremely 90s. Yeah, he's extremely 90s.
Stan Lee is there signing autographs.
He's dressed like an R&B singer.
Yeah. They plant a lot of characters like Steve, Dave, and Fanboy, which are regular characters. They reference Walt Flanagan's dog, which is in the comic books. We learned that Renee also had sex with Rick Darris on a pool table at a costume party. Is that the same one where Caitlin had sex with Dante in Clerks?
Presumably.
It all works together. Mm-hmm. We meet Gil Hicks as well.
It's like
Dante's
poetry, Dave.
cousin.
Yeah.
So this all leads into them getting kicked out of the mall by security. They plant pot on them. They have to go to the dirt mall. They talk to a topless psychic who has a third nipple.
Yeah.
And that reinvigorates them. They go back. They decide to get on the dating show to win back both of their exes. And so you have the dating sequence where Jason Lee is funny and I'm a big fan of Brian O'Halloran in that as Gil. His hair,
him desperately asking. It's like, well, did he come or what? Like a question no one would ask.
No one would ask.
Nobody would be like. That's not the thing you're waiting on pins and needles to learn in that story.
But they do a great job.
It's a story about. It's Jason Lee telling a story about his cousin in a plane crash. So he just starts to masturbate because the plane's going down, and then the plane rights itself, and nobody says anything.
Everybody else starts masturbating. Yeah. There's a great moment where they do like a sweeping shot of the audience all listening closely.
Very intently.
And then everybody was just masturbating. It's just Gil Hicks is a delightful character because you know exactly what he is. He's such a sad man.
He's a Butters. He's just there to say something.
He's a Butters.
He's there to say to set himself up like a T-ball and then gets swatted by Jason Lee.
Yeah. So they win them back without apologizing.
Nope.
Really.
without learning anything. And I mean, no, he
they send Ben Affleck to jail for having sex with an underage woman.
They sure do.
There's another running thing with Trish the Dish. Everybody calls her that. And she's this, I guess, 16-year-old who this was dated. Is getting $20,000 to write a book.
Yeah,
and I was like, Jesus.
That ain't much.
Yeah, like a sex book where she's like just having sex with lots of guys, filming it, telling them in advance, and she like willingly brings the sex tape to the mall, knowing that they're gonna play it, and so they play Ben Affleck having sex with her while talking about New Kids on the Block.
Yeah, who's your favorite new kid?
Yeah,
please don't go, baby.
Yeah, call me Joey.
Call me Joey.
You could tell he had fun with that scene. They just like say to a cop, that girl's only 15, and the cops are like, no need to look into it.
Yeah.
Which they kind of do it on purpose, because later when Jason Lee goes to hit him, and they're like, you can't hit a man in police custody. And he's like, oh, come on, just this time. They're like, all right, fine.
All right, yeah.
Like the idea is the cops just don't give a shit. And that's the movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
He stink palms Michael Rooker.
He stink palms Rooker. Yeah.
That's a whole thing.
It's a whole
chocolate
thing.
Pretzels.
The Easter Bunny. The Easter Bunny's a whole thing.
Yeah. The having sex in a really uncomfortable place, like the back of a Volkswagen, which apparently in this original script was like a dumpster, which I find way funnier. Because it's such an absurd alternative to that line.
It's grim and less jokey.
Yeah.
It's less like in the back of a Volkswagen. It's very like vaudeville. It's a very like call and response
like a
type of
dumpster is a real dumpster is a real like blunt instrument where
it sure is.
It's like, that's the movie. What would you say is the most dated part of this movie? Is it just the general way that, again, the actresses are nailing the lines and they're doing a great job, but it's the total lack of agency and the fact that they take these guys back without the guys actually having to do anything.
Yeah, they don't learn anything about themselves.
They just do an antic. They just do a fun antic.
Yeah.
At the end, Jason Lee, in fairness, says, "Okay, I guess I'll introduce you to my mom."
Yeah, he owes her breakfast and introducing her to his mom.
And that's what I mean. Where he's slightly better than TS, where he at least it like changes.
Right. He changes his behavior.
Yeah.
At the end, or at least we are told he is going to.
Yeah, and then he goes on to become a late night host.
Sure.
Which is really a bummer. It's a bummer because then when in the Jay and Silent Bob movies, that clearly didn't work out.
He mentions it, I think.
Yeah.
In Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Like,
but it clearly didn't. It couldn't have worked out if he's back.
Of course not. Yeah. I mean, yeah, you know.
They also set up the Jay and Silent Bob movies with them and the monkey at the end.
Yeah. With Suzanne and the Weezer song.
Yeah.
I think, the most dated aspect, apart from, it's yet another 90s comedy where the women just drift from bozo to bozo. I don't know. The music obviously is so 90s. It's like,
oh yeah,
such a 90s movie. A lot of the jokes don't age well. I think this movie is partially saved though for being as wacky as it is. It's wacky in a way that Clerks was not. And a lot of his later movies, like Strike Back and Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, kind of were more.
Yeah, like it really foreshadows that.
Yeah,
because when you watch this movie, I remember the first time I watched it. God, I remember seeing Dogma in theaters.
Yeah,
which means I remember a universe in which it was just Clerks, Mallrats, and Chasing Amy.
Yeah,
and so I remember watching this movie, and you look at those three movies. And you look at this one and you think, oh, so much studio meddling.
Yeah.
This is so unlike him.
It's very like him, yeah.
That's what's funny.
As it turns out, yeah.
Yeah, because both Clerks and Chasing Amy have that like Gen X cynicism, like talking about dirty stuff.
And are
like,
definitely more personal.
know,
like they clearly come from a personal place for Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Like Chasing Amy's about his relationship he had, and Clerks is about working those jobs and feeling like you're stuck and you're not going anywhere.
I do know that this movie, the studio, one of the things they did, which I don't think they did again, which is they made him do a pass and like make all the dirty words less dirty. Like that was the thing they did
for
too.
TV. Yeah, they had to. I think he mentions it on the DVD. They had to record like TV versions of each line.
Right. No, I think also the overall script, because it is slightly less raunchy.
Yeah, there are some words that are clearly like when he says, "Is this dork made out of orange rock?"
Yeah,
I think they call that out on one of the special features where the line was originally "dick," so it's one of those words that he just toned it down a little bit. And in my opinion, dork is kind of funnier.
Dork is funnier.
It's such a
like
weird
a
word. Yeah, it's like a child. It's like a little boy.
Yeah,
it's a bizarre thing to. It's a bizarre word to say.
Yes, it is. It really is for a dick. Like literally, only one person in history has ever said that, and it's Brody in this scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it is very funny that like, and then you look at Dogma, and Dogma is also less cartoony. Dogma is, for what it is, surprisingly not that cartoony. It's probably, well, not anymore. It was definitely more violent than anything he had ever done.
Yeah.
Like the most silly thing in that is the shit demon.
Mm-hmm.
And that is silly, but you know what I mean? Like the tone is still.
Yeah, the tone is serious almost. No, I mean, not wholly serious. It's just like, it's more...
Here's what it is.
It's more grounded. Weirdly, it's more grounded.
Yeah, here's what it is that in those 4 films, only Mallrats is the one where I feel like a character could fall a great distance and survive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the Looney Tunes rules. And then you get to Jay and Silent Bob and you get later in the career and it's like, "Oh, yeah, this was a thing." He just didn't really do it for the longest time.
Yeah,
and I don't know why that is.
I don't know, and I can't speak for him. I don't know the man, but it feels like maybe in this early stage of his career, he was still trying to make like important movies, you know, or like movies that were personal to him or that meant something to him personally. And then as his career progressed, you know, obviously there's still personal things that he puts in each movie, like we talked about in Strike Back. The personal element is very obvious. But I think it feels like he kind of let go of that instinct and just kind of leaned more towards like, well, I'm just gonna make jokes, or I'm just gonna make this movie, you know, like Red State or something like that, you know?
Yeah. I think as people get older, they become less edgelordy in general. And so, like, you look at Clerks and Chasing Amy and Dogma, it is a little more like gritty.
Yeah.
Is gritty the word? It's a
I
little
would
more of
use
the
that
young
word,
sensibility. Yeah. And I think what the deal is with Mallrats is, from everything I heard behind the scenes, it just seems like he was trying to make a movie for the studio. Like he was just trying to have fun. And so it does make sense that this stands out as being a wackier film, because I think he was just like, yeah, fuck it. Let's just have fun.
I mean, it had to be really fast too, because Clerks hit festivals in 94, and this movie came out the next year. Right.
They were filming this while they were filming the pilot for the Clerks TV show with Jim Brewer as Randall. Remember that?
No.
Remember that nightmare? Yeah, there's a Clerks TV show. Clerks TV show, not the animated series. I'm looking it up. With Jim Brewer as Randall. Yep, TV movie 1995. They list it as a TV movie, but it's 22 minutes.
Yeah, because it's just the pilot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's interesting. That didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, that didn't eventually become a thing.
Yeah. Anyway, Mallrats. That's what we're talking about. But yeah, it is that I feel like the cartoonishness, does save how dated it is. Like, again, the ending is so stupid, but it's almost saved by the fact that it doesn't feel like everybody is a human.
Yeah, it does not. This movie never purports to take place in the actual universe. It's very heightened reality, which is not.
And maybe that has to do with the comic book aspect too.
Possibly,
because we're seeing the conception of Blunt Man and Chronic. We're seeing, all the Looney Tunes shit, like literally the Wile E. Coyote, fucking like blueprints.
Mm-hmm. Everything they do is very Wile E. Coyote. And you compare. That's like the biggest thing is compare how Jay and Silent Bob are in this film to how they are in Clerks. And it's very different.
It's very different. And then they kind of, they dial it back for the brief scene in Chasing Amy.
Yeah. Well, they're more like, they're more real people in that movie. As real
Dogma,
as those two characters can be. Yeah. Again, as real as those two characters can be. But Clerks, Chasing Amy, and Dogma all feel like they feel like they take place in the real world. Obviously Dogma has the huge fantasy elements, but still.
Right. It's so funny to me that Jay and Silent Bob, like, they shouldn't have been in Dogma.
They should not have been in Dogma. That
hurts the movie. It's very funny though. Like, I'm still delighted by it. There's some great lines in that. It's just very funny that these are the two characters. He was like, yes.
Yep.
Always.
Well, I think they were going to be, again, you can see so many different ideas that he could have gone with. Like, it seemed like his intent, once Dogma rolled around, was to have Jay and Silent Bob pop up in some aspect in every one of his films. Like, it seems like that might have been his intent for a while, and that's what he did for a while.
For most of his movies.
Yeah. Except for like Jersey Girl and Cop Out, I think.
Right. Those are the only like comedies he made. I feel like that aren't in this universe.
Yeah. Jersey Girl might be.
I don't know. Remember that Will Smith is in that movie?
No.
Will Smith is in Jersey Girl.
I don't remember anything about it.
I don't think we're going to get to watch it for this.
Fiddlesticks.
Let me look. Maybe. Oh, no. I think we might. I think we might be watching Jersey Girl.
Perfect.
We'll see what happens.
Dave, that's fantastic news.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Zack and Miri.
Oh, yeah.
And that's one of the few with Jason Mewes playing
a different character, Lester the Molester.
Yeah, and I honestly really like the use of him in that.
He's incredible in that movie. It's like, oh, that's a great porn name. We gotta have porn names? I want my name to be Pete Jones.
Yeah, he's still Jason. He's still Jay,
yeah.
Just with short hair.
Yeah. Still the same dude, but...
Yeah. Okay, I guess we're still talking about Mallrats here.
I guess. I mean, we're talking about Kevin Smith, really, but through the lens of Mallrats.
Yeah, through the lens. That's fair. That works.
Yeah, I think it's more... The most dated aspect of this film is its two leads, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, sure, this movie follows the same pattern that a lot of comedies, and I wouldn't call this a rom-com, but it's like adjacent, because it's about relationships.
Right.
A lot of comedies around this time had this problem where it's just, the main characters are just a couple of dopes and they don't really learn anything, and their girlfriends have no agency beyond just drifting from guy to guy.
Right.
And then that definitely has that problem. But like, this movie stands out to me because its two leads are so coarse and rude and terrible in terms of being romantic partners.
Is that dated or is that a genre? Because I would say modern sitcoms do this. Like there's been, like I would say Family Guy.
I'd say it's both.
Problem.
It's both dated and a genre. It is a genre that is dated.
Yeah, you're right. That we need to get rid of.
And I wouldn't necessarily put Family Guy in that, because the Family Guy leans into the idea that Peter is terrible.
Right. I haven't watched Family Guy in ages, but
it doesn't.
But it's still
not like
terrible guy getting a million chances.
Yeah,
like it is a genre. I guess what I was getting at, and that now I'm thinking about it, is that when we talk about it being dated, there's no jokes that are like offensive.
I think I feel like there's one or two like R words.
There's stuff. Oh yeah, they whip out that R word.
They sure do.
Lot.
They still that was very vogue around this time.
Oh yeah, that's in Godzilla. The Godzilla movie, someone drops it.
The Godzilla movie.
Someone also says "wop."
Hank Azaria does. And he is very much not Italian. Like I thought, and he says it in the
Italian
movie.
Face.
Yeah, he says it in the movie, and I kind of excuse it because it's like, oh well, he's Italian, right? And then I looked up Hank Azaria. He very much is not Italian.
Yeah, Italian face is something we're still allowing as recent as right now with House of Gucci.
My God. It must be seen to be believed, Dave.
Yeah. I'm not saying we, like, as someone from an Italian family, I've never met someone who's offended by Italian face, personally, but it is weird that we get to do that, right? Like, that's weird.
It's an odd thing that we're still all okay with. It's,
Yeah. It's more like, again, like, I've never met anybody offended by it, which isn't to say people aren't. It's more of just like a, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is this?
It's like you look at all the fucking Asian jokes in 30 Rock. Or,
yeah, exactly.
It's
where it's like,
Christ.
holy shit.
Yeah. So, like, it's... I don't know.
Point is, yes, there's some dated elements there, but like not much in terms of homophobia. There's a joke where he accuses someone of being homophobic. And then it's like going back and forth. And that doesn't feel like that's a joke. Like that was more a joke about someone being like too PC, I want to say, or just Gil being just a little like a Butters.
Yeah.
There's not. My point is that it's not too dated in the humor as much as it is in the tone.
It's the tone,
in my opinion.
Yeah, it's not as dated. It's not dated in the way you might expect. And honestly, I don't think Kevin's. And I may be speaking out of my ass because this may be incredibly not true. But I feel like there wasn't too much casual homophobia in his movies.
I know he talks about his brother being gay.
Like it seemed like
I think he just grew up in an environment that he knew not to. No, I guess that's what I was getting at, is for a movie from the mid-90s that we're calling dated, it's surprisingly dated for not the reasons you'd expect.
Right. You'd expect it to be loaded with gay jokes and and like casual racism and shit like that. And it doesn't. It doesn't have any of those things. It's mostly in the fact
mainly because it has all white people.
Right, because there's not a single person of color in this film.
No, I think Chasing Amy is it the first time.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a problem.
Yeah. But obviously, that's a problem.
It's more that it's like that grunge slacker comedy Gen X era that is, it's Empire Records or it's anything, whatever else has Joey Lauren Adams in it. And I don't know. I think that. I guess that's why I was thinking about the comic book stuff, because it's very interesting to take that genre. And the one thing that makes this stand out from the rest is the casual insistence of adding comic books.
Yeah.
It's in the credits. It's throughout the whole film. Stan Lee's in it. And it's very funny to me because you think of something, again, like Empire Records, where like Guar shows up. And like that's what you normally would do during this time.
Yeah.
You'd have like a rock star be in your movie.
Yeah.
Not Stan Lee. And I love that about this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
That they like assumed this pop culture that didn't exist. And it sounds like the movie failed. Before that reason.
Oh, it did. Yeah. It failed. It failed big time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they hated all the comic book stuff. Yeah.
But I think that's the stuff that makes this movie, in my head, important. With a question mark.
No.
In that, what makes Kevin Smith sort of stand out is internet culture now, and how ahead of his time he was with that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean, is that this movie is culturally important in a weird way. To our current culture, in that it's like if I was making a documentary on comic books and nerd culture, I would start around here. I would include it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. I would start around this film and the X-Men cartoon. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. As like the beginnings of this shit.
Yeah.
And then you got Michael Rooker in there, who's been in, a bunch of comic book things.
Yeah, Cliffhanger.
Yeah, and Cliffhanger. And we get to see his ass.
Yeah, we do. Finally, at long last.
Mm-hmm.
We might see his ass in Henry. I can't remember. Anyway.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the movie?
No, just that this is the hardest one to revisit because, again, it's because the two leads. Jason Lee is very, very funny in his delivery, but, like, he's such a fucking asshole. T.S. is such an asshole. Like, I tried to show this movie. Like, one of the times I revisited this movie was showing it to Marina. I was like, oh, this is good. This is a movie I loved when I was in high school. And she couldn't stand it because the main characters are just assholes.
They are. They're major assholes.
And they're assholes in the type of... They're like the worst kind of assholes. Well, not really the worst kind of assholes, but like they're every asshole on the internet that you get frustrated with. They're those two. Yeah. They're the Brody especially, but...
Well, we often talk about, like, when we do the Fox Mulder podcast about Mulder in the age of QAnon is a terrible thing.
Yeah.
Brody in the age of... they do that in the Jay and Silent Bob reboot. Brody is toxic.
Yeah.
Like, and that is how he would be.
Yeah, that was like what he would be. What he would be, yeah.
Yeah, he'd be a toxic, weird troll talking about, like, diversity, forced diversity in these movies. Like, he would be terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could definitely feel that from this, even though this is in simpler times.
Yeah, it was who cares if he rants about how dumb the introduction of this character is into this comic book in 1995, but in like 2021 where people are getting bullied off the internet and like,
right, it's a shame because this and the Stormtrooper stuff. Again, that was the stuff I found charming. Like, this movie didn't... I was more attached to Clerks than this movie, so the datedness, I guess, doesn't affect me as much. But, like, the things I glommed onto are those dumb conversations. As being, like... I had just never seen anything like this, and the idea of, like, you can just talk about bullshit with a passion. And now it's gotten to a point where that is seen as, like, toxic on the internet. Unfortunately, because the people have gotten way too serious about the bullshit, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's I think it's kind of run its course as a comedic delivery system too.
Oh,
it's like when I see people launch, or when I see characters launch into debates like these in movies or TV now, more often than not, I kind of roll my eyes because I'm like, oh, because you can just see it. You can see it on the page almost. Because,
it's with this stuff, that's part of what makes it dated is like the Stormtrooper thing is now so old in our head. I would say that if you're right, now we have like shows deconstructing the superhero genre,
Yeah.
I would say that the only time it is fascinating is if it's just something I hadn't thought about,
Mm-hmm.
If someone can do that and surprise me. But it's very hard.
It's hard to do. It's hard to do. Yeah.
We've been through that ringer. We've heard it all.
This movie is 25 years old.
Yeah. Oh, I just mean us in general.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, and I'm saying
we were directly in this industry, the industry of deconstructing pop culture.
Yeah.
So it's hard. Like it's hard to surprise. I think us specifically too.
That's fair.
With that stuff.
Yeah, I was just saying in terms of this movie is 25 years old. 26 actually, this style, like this brand of nerd culture deconstruction, has only continued since then. So
yeah, exactly.
Like I imagine it would be hard. I mean, us probably more so than the average audience, but I think the average audience as a whole, it's more difficult to surprise people with stuff.
But
like
it's interesting. It is interesting to me how this stuff didn't evolve into more movies of people doing what Kevin Smith does. Like, you can't really think of another filmmaker.
It's because it failed at the time, Dave.
Yeah. Well, no, but I was going to say is it moved to the internet.
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
I would say sites like Cracked kind of did, like, this is where it came off from.
Yeah.
But what's more interesting is that the superhero films themselves started doing it more than anything. And it's almost like that's... a whole other conversation. But there was never like a genre of movies where nerds debated things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's for what you're saying that it failed.
Because it didn't take off.
But ultimately, Kevin Smith didn't fail. You know, he kept making movies. And
there are plenty of small movies that do this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them out there, and most of them are terrible.
I was about to say, it's like trying to be Tarantino. Where
Yeah.
It's like, don't do it.
Like,
just don't.
Like, I think Fanboys is one of them, and that's a real...
Yeah.
Which is incredible because it has Jason Mewes and like Seth Rogen in it and shit like that.
Wow.
But like,
part
it's
of
just
it,
not good.
I think part of it, like Tarantino dialogue, part of the problem is that it's not good in general. But we've allowed somebody to get away with it.
Right.
Like Tarantino, we're just like, okay, but just you. And like you're barely getting by.
Well,
we still all roll our eyes at you.
But his movies are very watchable and successful and popular. So it's like,
well, yeah.
you know.
But you know what I mean, where it's like we didn't even need one, let alone two.
Right.
So like someone trying to imitate this style, it's like, look, Kevin Smith is he's been on thin ice his whole career.
I was gonna say it's like trying to imitate somebody doing cartwheels on a high wire. It's like, buddy, that guy's barely getting by. So
exactly.
you don't want to imitate that. Like that's a house of cards.
So how do you think this is gonna compare to Yoga Hosers?
I think it's gonna be probably a similar tone.
I do too. I think this is all right. Slacker comedy in a single location where I'm guessing they talk about a lot of weird bullshit and it's oddly cartoony.
Yeah,
because I know that Yoga Hosers is. I know that Johnny Depp's in it in some sort of Jared Leto-esque makeup situation. I know that there's like a sci-fi element in that or some sort of fantasy.
Yeah, there's some supernatural element. There's like Nazi wieners, I think, like Nazi hot dogs or something like that. There's something like that shit in here.
So yeah, I mean, fucked if I know. Maybe I don't know anything about that movie.
Just the trailer.
I'm kind of
just the trailer.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited that I'm going to go into it.
And
blind.
Just judging by the comedies he's made recently, it's like Strike Back. It seemed, which is very much in the same tone as Mallrats. I expect it to be in that tone, the kind of broader, wackier. Like who cares?
Yeah.
Like what? Like why he's not precious about anything.
No, I think all right. So I'm kind of going back. I don't think the slacker comedy talking is going to actually play into it. I think it's going to be more the Jay and Silent Bob mishaps is more what we're going to see. That silliness, right?
I don't know. I think it's going to be a mix of the two.
I think it's one of the things that Kevin Smith has sort of had trouble with in the later in the later movies. Which is like, I almost think, because like my least favorite part of this movie, Mallrats, is the Jay and Silent Bob antics, because they're just cartoon shit. And so it's like, nah, like there's nothing funny about that. It's like little kid stuff. Mm-hmm. Them swinging around, them doing the grappling hook, like it's fun for sure. But that was always, in my mind, the weakest part of Mallrats. Obviously looking at it as an adult. There's other issues, but I do think Yoga Hosers is going to be more on that side. I don't know. I guess we'll just have to watch it.
Yeah, I guess we're going to have to just finally bite that hose.
Bite that hose.
Bite that hose.
I'm excited for it.
Sure.
I do, for the most part. I know we did the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, and we didn't have kind things to say about it. I really enjoy the nihilism of his later years with this stuff. Of the stuff he's been doing lately, I love how little he gives, how little shits he gives.
Yeah.
I can't wait for Moose Jaws. Can't wait for whatever the fuck that's going to be.
Yeah, if it even comes out. We'll see. He's been talking about it for a while.
But I like that he did the movies he wanted to make, and now he's like, I'm just going to keep making movies until someone stops me, I guess.
Yeah. Sure.
I appreciate
keep calling in favors.
Yeah. No, I think all filmmakers should do this, where like movies like Tusk, where it's like, okay, from here on, I'm just going to do things and make do like mad science experiments, essentially, as movies.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I'm going to mix a bunch of bullshit together, see if it works. I don't know. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Is that it?
I think so. I think that noise signifies the end of the show.
Yeah. That's, yeah. You know what that sound means?
Yeah.
It's time to stop talking about Mallrats. I mean, I feel like we barely talked about Mallrats, but again, what are we going to do?
Yeah. You guys have seen it.
What are we going to do? Do scene by scene?
If you listen to this episode, odds are you've seen Mallrats. So
it'd be weird if you hadn't.
Be a little strange. I'm not judging you. I'm a little bit, not entirely though, but a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm watching you.
Yeah. You will be watched.
Keeping my eye on you.
Big thank you to @NerdNumbers for making this all happen through our Patreon. And if you're curious, our Patreon is patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. If you go on there for just $5 a month, you get access to Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. Those are all exclusive podcasts. $5.
Yeah, $5 measly dollars. Oh,
yeah, it's like something like 7 podcasts a month, maybe 8.
Yeah.
Dare I say 8? I don't know how many.
I'm dare.
Not counting.
You should dare. And you should dare to head over to gamefullyunemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store.
Nice.
Where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs that you can get on t-shirts and mugs and stickers and posters and all kinds of stuff. So you should check that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's wacky. It's at least as wacky as Mallrats.
Is it? Yeah.
I think so. We got some pretty wacky things on there.
Is it it's the Mallrats of shirt stores?
I would say that. I've been saying that to anyone who will listen.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Noise, smoking weed, doing coke, drinking beers.